What is up, everyone? We are back with another episode of Shaping the Culture. And this week, we've got a phenomenal guest. Listen, not every week do I get the chance of having a friend come on the episode, but today I've got a dear sister. She's a writer. She's a great expositor of the gospel. She's got her ministry within. She loves the Lord, committed to the local church. She has a heart for the people of God. Man, I can go on and on about this sister that we have today. We've got the one and only Yodit with us today. Yodit, how are you doing, fam?
I am doing well. I need to come on here more often. No, I am doing well, man. Such an honor to be on this episode or just this podcast. You know how I feel about this podcast and the incredible work that you're doing. And so Thank you for inviting me on. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for accepting that invitation and coming on. For those that are new to the podcast, we were just talking about off air how this is the 70th episode. And for all the A1 day ones, they know you were on at one point. It was episode 22. It was like 2, 3 years back.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Crazy. I don't know where the time went, but we're here. And so, yeah, thank you for, accepting the invitation and being willing to come on once more. And just sharing some insight that God has given you.
It's an honor. So let's get started.
Yeah, let's do it. So, for those who may or may not know, you recently dropped a project entitled Called to the Ones, or is it Called to the Ones, Called to the Ones and Not the Masses? For those who don't know anything about that, can you just let us know what that's about, what you're doing with that project, the heart behind it, all of that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So it is called Call to the Ones. But so I'm wearing my merch today. Call to the Ones, not the masses. And this project really came from just my own walk with the Lord. And these words were spoken to me by the Lord in just prayer. He dropped these words in my heart that really just helped me or remind me um, that God is not after us and reaching just the masses, right? At the neglect of like paying attention to the ones who are in our lives. And it really came from just my own story, where over the years, when God would stir my heart with an idea, and my initial response is to be like, all right, it's going to be this big old thing. And God has over the years just kind of reeled me back in and said, it's not about that. Like, and so when I first started within, I remember back when it first started back in 2010, 2012, it was simply a community of a website where women can join a community. And I thought when I first started it, there would be like hundreds and hundreds of girls on it, women on it. And, it was few. And I was writing daily devotionals. And I remember feeling discouraged. And I just remember like in prayer just being reminded that like even if there was just one person that was reading this devotionals, write it with the same faithfulness and same vigor and same joy that you do in writing it. And I can go through countless stories of those reminders. And so when these words came to me months back, it was when I was meditating on 2 Corinthians chapter 10,
Yeah,
verses 12 to 18. And it's basically Paul talking about his ministry. And can I just read it real quick?
yeah, let's do
Is
it.
that okay? So
Yeah.
it says, not that we dare to classify or compare ourselves with some of those who are commending themselves, but when they measure themselves by one another and compare themselves with one another, they're without understanding. But we will not boast beyond limits, but will boast only with regard to the area of influence God assigned to us to reach even to you. For we are not overextending ourselves as though we did not reach you. So it just I remember reading this and just being encouraged in my heart because at that time I was struggling with just feeling like, what impact am I making?
Mm,
And it was in that God just used to just one remind me of how am I just being a good steward of the measure of grace I've been given and the influence I've been given, not looking to another, not thinking that perhaps because they have a bigger sphere of influence that their level, their measure of impact is greater than mine, and so yeah, so God dropped these words in my heart, and I told a sister of mine to make a shirt for me just for my own. And then I thought, well, you know what? Perhaps if I wear it and people resonate with it, this can be an awesome opportunity just to push this message that we may some of us may be called to the masses in a bigger platform, but all of us are called to the ones, right? All of us are called to pay attention to those in our lives whom we can serve or love or see and know. So that's a short end of it, but yeah. So that really is just the message, just to encourage people, especially in this day and age, where we are just entrenched in a society that insists the message of like bigger platform, more followers. So
No,
yeah,
that's so
call
profound.
to the ones.
I love it. I love it. So I can resonate with that. Even with this podcast, you and I have talked about, over
Yeah.
yeah, just phone conversation, man. There's a real temptation to want to blow up. There's a real temptation to want to reach the masses and want to do really great exploits for the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not everybody's call. Like, not everyone is called to that. But like you said, God has there are people that He has called us to. I just
Mm-hmm.
kind of wanted to ask you, how would you define impact? If impact is not measured by the amount of people we reach, and if God has designated a certain amount of people for us to serve, how should we look at impact? What should the aim be?
My initial response is impact is simply obedience.
Mm,
And
wow.
I say that because we think that bearing fruit means like numbers.
Yeah.
Like if I bear fruit, that means it's numbers. That's the measure. And bearing fruit is simply like obedience to the Lord, like to the Spirit. And so for me is, you know, and again, I didn't just get here. Like I've been pulled in that temptation to think like I have to have this platform or this kind of large, like being seen to feel like I'm more significant or like my impact matters to the Lord, when I'm realizing like obedience matters to the Lord. And so if in that moment that a person is in front of me and I'm loving and serving them, like that's obedience, right? Because the reality is like if what we believe cannot reach people where they are and in their circumstance, that means that's not God's truth.
Mm,
Because God's truth doesn't have like it only works for this people or only works for this condition. And so for me, I'm learning that impact is simply obedience. And so yeah, how am I obeying the Lord with the people that He's giving me in my life? Because the reality is, the thing about the masses is it's an illusion because you can't see them, you
yeah.
don't know them, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, we have this allegiance. I got to reach the masses, and that's the mentality. And yet, you got someone right in front of you,
Yeah.
like. And so what happened? I am not like negating or dismissing the masses, because
Yeah. Yeah.
um, praise God for a platform that can reach more people. But if it's at the neglect
Wow.
and the dismissiveness of the ones in front of you, I don't think God is pleased with that. And let's talk about it. Like,
Yeah.
this whole like celebrity Christian culture and the masses, like, and but you're neglecting the very people in front of you. And I don't think that God is pleased with us when we do that. And so
Wow.
um yeah, so I would say impact is measured by obedience. And so praise the Lord if God opens the door for you to have this platform and you steward that well. But it will never be at the neglect of
Mm,
at the ones, because I mean, people that don't know you you can have their ears, right? People listen to you, but people that know you,
yeah.
right, and you're neglecting them, and because we tend to kind of diminish the ones when we have the platform of the masses.
Wow.
We that's not significant, like, you know what I mean? Like, no, I need something bigger because I have the ears of the masses. And so I want to, and I know it goes against the grain, but it's just like, Lord, renew our minds to see that the ones in front of us have just as much significance or a difference that we can make
Yeah.
um, with the masses.
Yeah.
And Jesus, I mean, we talk about this, but Jesus is the greatest example of that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Speaking to Jesus, I know you and I had talked about one time how Jesus spoke in parables. In fact,
mm-hmm.
one third of the ways in which he spoke was through the form of parables. And
Yeah.
he spoke in parables to conceal and reveal truth.
Mm-hmm.
And he was very masterful in doing so. Like, he wasn't, even when he had the crowd, he was speaking
Yeah.
code.
Yeah.
He cared for those that were truly hungry and those that really wanted him for who he was and not necessarily what he could do for.
Right. Right.
Wanted to ask you, how do we get back to uh, dignifying the ones? How do we find significance? How do we truly value? Maybe somebody's listening and they're a youth leader, or somebody's
Yeah.
listening, they don't got a lot of followers on Instagram. Maybe somebody's listening, they started a ministry and it's not taking off in the way they want it to take off. How do you get to a point where you realize what is in front of you is spectacular because that is what God has entrusted you with in this moment? Not to say it
Right.
won't
Yeah.
change, but it might not. How do we even in that be pleased with what God has given us and value it and serve it well?
Yeah. Well, I would say first let Jesus be our example,
Mm,
right? Anything that we're called to do is because Jesus has been the example for it, right? As believers. And so when you look at the life of Jesus, he was called to save the world,
yeah.
right? I mean, he was called to save the masses, the world, but like even the way he walked this earth, he chose 12 disciples. I mean, you would think that
Mm,
if Christ came to save the world, like he would have like a 500 people course of how to be a disciple so you can go and reach the more people. But he chose to pour his life and walk with 12 disciples, right? People that he saw that significance of that. And even what you and I talked about, he removed himself from the masses oftentimes, and he made it a point to go to the ones. He made it a point to
wow.
he was in the crowd, and the lady who was the
Mm,
issue of bleeding, he stopped and
wow.
he paid attention, and he gave her the gift of time and the gift of his presence. And I think about the woman at the well, how God, Jesus, the scripture says that he had to go through Samaria.
Yeah.
Like he showed us like these, they matter, it matters because of that woman who the Lord revealed himself to. She ended up
Mm,
the Gentiles came to know him, right? And so I think Jesus just shows us that the ones matter because
wow.
giving them the gift of time, or just whether it's the ones of like you're walking with to help them mature. We'll talk about discipleship a little more, but Jesus exemplified that. So I think for any person who feels like you're not making an impact, oh, here's another thing.
Mm,
So when Jesus fed the 5,000, you would think like you would be more like amazed. You're more amazed, like, wow, he fed 5,000 people, right? Um, but just one of the implications I take from that story is like out of that 5,000, literally probably we don't know the number, right? But it was very few that probably followed him from that experience, right? So you would think that because you were reaching more people that you were making greater impact, when in reality, like only a few, like they can hear, but only a few end up being the ones that actually believed, right? And so I think don't be disillusioned by the masses, because Jesus showed us like the masses came to him, but like you said, only few ended up following him, And so I think his example shows us that the masses, while they were in number like really great, when you're investing, like only the few are going to come out of that. And so even when Jesus, him pouring into the 12,
yeah.
going deeper, not wider, and I remember the Lord even speaking that to me, because
Good.
I forgot the impact of going deeper with something versus feeling like, if I'm reaching the masses because it's wide, versus like, no, we're also called to go deep, And so, yeah, I would just say first and foremost, Jesus is our example,
Yeah.
right? He modeled that for us beautifully.
Mm,
And so, yeah,
I love that. Yeah, I mean, when continuing to look at the example of Jesus, he started off with a crowd. I mean, he was buzzing.
right.
Everybody wanted a piece of Jesus, but by the end of his life, it was just his mother and one disciple there with him. Like he literally
Yeah,
lost all of even amongst the 12. Like they needed to be encouraged, and
yeah,
they had to catch. Yeah, they had to catch Jesus after the resurrection to build their morale and their spirits up again, and to really lean into this
yeah,
reality of who Jesus is. But yeah, you see Jesus, um, yeah, grassroots, always concerned with the ones that we're attentive and that we're there.
Mhm.
I wanted to ask you, in light of all of that, what do you think our example has been? If it's not Jesus, then what are we looking to that has made us believe that if I don't reach the masses, then I'm not doing anything at all. You talked about celebrity pastors earlier. It just feels like, in Western Christianity,
Mhm.
in order to have a fruitful or impactful or respected ministry or church or what have you, you got to have the numbers. Like, what gospel have we bought into? Like, what do you think the example has been for us, and how's that harmed us?
Yeah. Woof. Well, I think like social media has a lot to do. I mean, social media, let's face it, it is rewiring us to think um, that, you know, impact is measured by the number of followers. I mean, if you were to be honest, if someone reached out to you that had 500,000 followers about an opportunity and someone else reached out to you that had 500 followers, who are you going to pay attention to?
The
Who are
500,
you going to consider more significant?
right?
Oh snap. Like, and so I mean, we're being wired to think that numbers mean like their sound or they know what they're talking about. And so I mean that's what we're being bombarded with right now, right? And so and obviously in Christianity, like just even in the West, like social media, using and stewarding social media, right? We want to steward it well, but like we're also buying into this narrative, this cultural narrative that um that you build your platform, more people. And I think we disguise it. And again, sometimes it's really just like this desire just to want to reach. Who doesn't want to reach more people? Like,
Yeah,
who doesn't? But I think it just, what that's overshadowed by just the reality, like that we think that we're really reaching people because we have more, we have more followers on our platform. And so I mean, I think we really have to, if we're to know the schemes of the enemy, right? Like, know the schemes. I think that we have to know that this is a way that the enemy uses to make us think that we are actually doing work because we have a social media platform that has a majority, I mean, it has a large following. And yet there are plenty of people who are not on social media who are doing work, who are, living. And it's just like, because the reality, like we've, as we're being rewired, we're just starting to think like,
mm,
oh, you're significant, or you actually know what you're talking about because you have a large following. And so now we're being desensitized to like what is truth because it's being
mm,
hijacked by numbers, like.
wow.
And so it's just a daily fight, man. It is. I mean, I think that I would be lying if I said that I don't fight this battle, of thinking that. And that's why to me, like, these words just reorients my heart over and over again. Because like I can have this mass, and we know of people, or just we hear it, right? People who we think that, like, we have an assumption about who they are
Yeah,
because of their following, but no idea what's behind the scene. We no idea how they're treating the ones, and the people that are in their vicinity, people that know them, people that they know.
yeah,
And so I just think that we have to guard our hearts, know the scheme of the enemy,
mm,
in regards to the way that he is using something that can be very much for the glory of God.
yeah,
Um, but we're also sinners, right? We, by disposition and even by choice, but even by disposition, the way that we interpret certain things, if we're not daily being renewed, it will be renewed in our own understanding, if not by the word of God.
yeah. That's so good. I love that. You know what I love about what you just talked about was this reorienting our heart. Just this, like you said, it is a daily fight. It's hard not to believe that if you have a blue check right next to your name, that you're called by God. Like, if other people affirm you, then you're definitely on the right track. It's a battle that
Mm-hmm.
you face every day, or even something as small as sending out a tweet, and if you don't get any likes, it's like, maybe there's no truth to it.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Mm-hmm.
affirmed by the masses, and that's not necessarily true either. And so, what I wanted to ask you was, you know, y- I know you're not demonizing the masses. I know
Mm-mm.
you're not saying,
Yeah.
to reach the masses is a bad thing, because it's not. I think God has called some to reach the masses. What's that fine line? Like, what do you think is the balance between affirming, dignifying, valuing the ones, but at the very same time, if God calls you to the masses, not losing sight of the bigger picture?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, so I'm gonna say it again. I am not demonizing large platforms and large I think the balance, or just, the place of just remembering that, because remember, I mean, even if he gives you a platform, like, you're not known and you don't know these people.
Mm,
You know
mm,
what I mean? I mean, that's just like, this logically, like, you don't know. You don't know these people. They don't really know you. They know what you say, but they're not behind closed doors. They're not the ones who has, like, they're privy to your life, like, behind closed doors. And so I think it's just the humility to understand that, praise God, he has given you and the ability and entrusted you to steward a platform, and steward even the hearts of these people, because the reality is, like, they may be the masses, but they're still ones, they're still individuals, right? And so I'm not just like lumping people in masses. I'm just saying more of like the ability for us to distinct, like, bigger platforms, like, means more. But when it comes to having that and stewarding it, I think it's just remembering that, like, while you have the ears of listener, of the masses, how do you have the hearts of the ones who are in your vicinity, right? Like, how are you, because how are you not neglecting that? Because we can just get, because we can puff up too. I mean, I think having the ears of the masses, if we're not careful, if we're doing it on our own strength, we will puff up. Like, we will grow prideful. We will not be we will, we won't listen to people, like, we won't listen to the ones, like, if we're like, well, I had this big platform. And so I think it's just making sure you understand that, like, what God is really after.
yeah.
He and the fact that, like, he doesn't see you as more significant, or um
Wow. That's
because you have a platform for the masses.
wow.
And so I think it's just like a humility, like, where's my posture with the Lord in this platform that I've been given. um and then not to look down on those who don't have larger platforms, right? Like, we do that, like, and we don't say it out loud, but we know what we're thinking, or we know what our posture is. Like, again, I'm more, I would probably listen to someone who has a check next to them versus, like, someone who doesn't. And um just remembering who you're doing this for is God, and God sees all, God knows all, God is not impressed. um Praise God, he entrusts us to have a bigger platform. But what you do in the day to day, and the people, the ones that are in your life, I think, is what God is looking for, because you're technically not um obligated to serve the ones in the way that you're obligated to serve the ones, or to serve the masses in the way that you'd be obligated to love and serve the ones who are in front of you.
Yeah, I love that. So good. This past week, I was at a church planting conference and I went to a session on burnout and I didn't know what to expect. But the whole conversation was about how most pastors and leaders burn out because they find their security in the numbers.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
the burnout has nothing to do with the work. It has everything to do with attaching your identity with or your worth to the
yeah,
masses, which was,
yeah.
I didn't know that the speaker was going to take it in that direction, but that was like that was a great session for me to go to and a great heart check. And I wanted to ask you along these lines, why do you think we've attached, or have we, like, I don't know, maybe you can share from your personal experiences. Like, I know for me, sometimes, like, let's say I put out an episode and it doesn't get the reaction I wanted
Hmm.
to, or it doesn't
Hmm.
get the likes or the clicks. It's very easy to, yeah, self-deprecate. It's really
Hmm.
easy to be like,
Hmm.
oh, see, you're not called to this. See, this isn't for you, or
Um,
yeah, maybe you should quit, right? Like, and it's weird to say that out loud, but I think these are some of the internal battles we face when we
Absolutely.
don't see the masses co-sign what we believe God is calling us to. And so, how do we kind of like divorce the two? That our security comes in who God says we are, we're His children, we're loved, we're forgiven, that we're set free, that we are, yeah, that's our primary identity.
Hmm.
How do we, yeah, like how do we get here? Can you like can you relate to that, and how do we overcome some of that?
Oh yeah. I mean, I totally relate to it. I mean, like I said, like when I started within and I was like, oh, there's only this number of people on this platform. And God's like, you better, you can say it like this, but just even if it's just one, right? Like, cause I was kind of like, what's the point then if it's only like these number of people? And so again, over time, it's just like, okay, I know it makes a difference, but I can't see the difference perhaps, but just trusting that it makes a difference. Um, but yeah, I've struggled with that, and I remember even when God dropped these words in my heart, I was struggling with that mentality, with that thought process, and um, I think one of the things, and I don't want to sound morbid, but one of the things that helps me when I struggle with thoughts like that is I am not guaranteed tomorrow.
Mm, mm,
Like
yeah,
a lot of the things that we think about, we stress over, like it's part of the assumption that like there's always a tomorrow. Like,
mhm,
and again, I'm not trying to sound morbid. I'm just, for me,
yeah,
reminding myself
yeah,
that life is short.
yes, yeah,
Um, has It always just kind of brings me back to the present moment,
yeah,
and what am I doing with the present moment? And
yeah,
so that present moment for me is not the masses. The present moment for me is how am I loving and serving and just being fully
yeah,
present where I am. And so I have to do that for me. Like that is the way the Lord kind of reorients my heart to remember like, and I'm accountable. Like I will stand before the Lord, And so, because more than anything, like you said, it's a heart issue.
yeah.
And so if I don't really truly believe my worth
Mm,
is in what God has and what God has done through Christ, then I'm gonna find myself. I love this book that I'm reading. I'm going through with a sister of mine, and it's the Gospel Center of Life, and it talks about when we don't believe in, when we don't truly put our trust in the gospel, what happens? We either fall into the pretending or the performing, right? And the
yeah,
performing is you don't quite believe
mm,
and truly trust what Christ has done, and the implications of that, right? So I'm talking about your identity,
yeah,
the fact that you don't have to perform for God, and so for us, it's really like us behaving in that way or thinking that way is also we've not been secure in
mm,
the love of God for us, like because then we're thinking that we get God's attention when we've reached the masses,
wow,
and that's God's attention has nothing to do um with what we do for him, honestly. Like yeah, he is pleased when we are living our lives to please him, but if that was the case, then that means what Christ has done was not sufficient.
yeah, so
And so I just being rooted in the gospel is yet another thing, right? And when we find ourselves thinking about, when we find ourselves like questioning our worth because of how many people we're reaching or not reaching, it's like I think that's a call to repent, conviction of the heart. I've not truly believed in the gospel, like fully. Like I need to, I need to ask the Lord to remind me, as my pastor says, remember, rehearse, and rejoice in the gospel daily, because it's just we have to, or else we get ourselves caught up in this kind of way or dragged in this tide. And so, so yeah, remembering that tomorrow is not guaranteed, I think will help us just how do we just fully give ourselves to this present moment, and which means that we're going to fully give ourselves to the ones in the moment that we're in, and not strive for this illusion of the masses. And then the second one I said, which, oh yeah, and the gospel. I'm like, I forgot the gospel. Don't forget the gospel.
yeah,
Um,
remember
and just
rejoice.
right, just let it be a way that we are like, because that means the Holy Spirit's convicting us of like, if I'm struggling with this, that means where have I not truly put my trust in the gospel and the work of Christ?
Yeah, no, that's so profound. Much to be said there, but we don't
Oh
have.
yeah, I know.
But because one thing I did want to talk to you about is discipleship, and I think sometimes when our focus, again, not demonizing the masses,
Right.
God has called some for that, but when we assume that responsibility and when we put all our eggs in that basket and that's what we're pursuing, I think it robs us of the opportunity to disciple and really hone in on the ones. Um,
Yeah.
the way Jesus served when he was on earth wasn't by holding these huge gatherings with the masses always. It happened, but he chose 12
Mm-hmm.
and he walked with them and he did life
Yeah.
with them and he poured into he discipled them and he commissioned them to disciple others after his assignment was complete. And so I wanted to ask you, um, why do you think we're not well, let me start here. Do you think that we've seen a lack of discipleship because the focus now is on the masses? And if so, what do we need to do to get back to the heart of God, which is discipleship?
Yeah. Yeah, and I love the way you frame that. Didn't even think about it that way in regards to like neglecting discipleship because we get so focused on feeling like ministry has to be a platform masses idea. So yes, I mean I definitely do think that discipleship, and I don't want to speak for the church at large, just more so in my experience, like where you don't hear about discipleship enough, right? And just even understanding it, because sometimes we just think discipleship and we automatically think like a program. I went through a program
Mm.
versus like the call of every believer. Matthew 28, I mean, that's like that, we go to that verse because, I mean, that's the command that Christ has given to go into the world, make disciples, teaching them to observe. So this is where I feel like we stop.
Yeah.
We're good at making disciples, maybe perhaps just spreading the gospel.
Wow.
Perhaps like it's all about, yeah, let's go teach the gospel. But the second part, teaching them to observe all that I've commanded, I
Yeah.
feel like that part is missing. That to me, so that's why you can have a bunch of people say I believe in Christ, but no fruit to show for it because no one is showing them how to do that, which is why we believe in the local church, right? Um, but I also believe that as believers, I'm currently teaching Hebrews, and we just got done chapter 5, where at the end of chapter 5, the author is telling them, by this time you ought to be teachers, but you need someone to teach you the basic principles of God. So to me, that says, based on the word of God, that perhaps there's a time where, and not by teaching, like not the gift of teaching, but teaching more so your life should be showing others
Mm.
how to follow Christ, like what the gospel is, right? And so I feel like, there is a time where we need to be helping someone else walk the faith, right? We don't have to be scholars. We don't have to be in seminary. Like, but the call of the Christian, we've privatized our faith, right? In a way that we
Sheesh.
forget that it's communal.
Yeah.
And so praise God for him opening my eyes to see the light of the gospel, right? And the light of Christ. And now as I live, as I'm growing and my knowledge of God, I, if I'm not like making the effort to help someone else walk with him, then I'm not saying that my faith is in vain, but it's just like I'm missing a big part of what it means for the gospel to bear fruit, And so I am really big on discipleship in the sense of like who, and it's not about, hey, I need to, because we think like making an impact is like I got to start a ministry,
Right.
And again, not knocking that. I
Yeah.
have a ministry.
Yeah.
But that's something I believe God's given me to do, but it's not at the expense of the
No.
one-on-ones that I'm constantly and understanding the importance of that. So who are the ones in your life that you can help walk with them to maturity in Christ, right? And it doesn't have to be a large group, but you can literally be helping a sister, a brother walk in the Lord, teaching them his ways, teaching them to observe his ways. And it really, the hope is that it would be in your vicinity. You know people. And so, but as the scripture says, like you ought to be doing XYZ, and you're not, which means like we ought to be doing this. Like there's no way that we are 10 years in our faith and we've not helped another person walk with the Lord, and so um and it holds us accountable, and that's the whole thing, right? Part of discipling is you're also held accountable, right? It's not like you're not just teaching them, but you're holding each other accountable. And so yeah, the hope for this Call to the Ones project is really part of the main thing is really to help uh, with this other project, which I won't bring up now, but just in regards to just encouraging women, um, sisters to disciple. It's just part of our walk. We need it. It is, discipleship to me is, if we're talking about spiritual disciplines, and the way that I have come to define spiritual disciplines is uh, anything that is for the endurance of my faith.
Yeah.
So prayer, all those other things that we're very like we know them, but to me discipleship, that is to me that is for the endurance of my faith.
Yeah.
Someone walking with me, and me walking with someone else.
Yeah.
So
Man, I love it. There's so much you said there, but there's one thing I kind of wanted to pick out and discuss.
yeah.
You talked about how there's nothing wrong with having a ministry, you have a ministry, but that shouldn't come at the cost of discipleship. And I love the word. So when Jesus commanded them, go and make disciples of all nations, that word go is like that verb is progress, like it's as you go, better
Mm-hmm.
translated. Yeah, as you know. And it's yeah, as you go, get this degree, make disciples, as you get married, make disciples,
Yeah.
as you climb the
Mm,
corporate ladder, make disciples,
that's
as you
good.
start the ministry, make disciples. But I feel like a lot of the times the excuse is, man, I just don't got time right now. Man, I've got this going on, I've got that going on, I've got to do this. And I think like we put discipleship on the back burner because we're so focused, we're so fixated on these other things that are happening
Yeah.
in life. And not to excuse what happens in life, they're very real and it happens. But how do we, get back to what Jesus, as you do those things, make disciples? I thought it was yeah, there's just we gotta I wanted to
Yeah.
touch on a little bit because I think you highlighted priority in the way you
Mm,
talked about discipleship. And I feel like maybe we haven't seen discipleship as much as we ought to because we haven't prioritized
yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
So, how do we get back to a place where we make disciples as we go live about our life?
Yeah. That's a good question. Um, I'm trying to think because, again, I'm going to point it back to the word first, right? Because if Christ commanded it, that means it is a priority, right? It is a priority. And so I think we can make excuses for a lot of things.
Yeah.
Um, that doesn't mean they're justifiable. Like, because if I make an excuse, like, again, especially if I believe that it is for the endurance of my faith, and so um, I need to be, I mean, that's it, Christ has commanded me. And I'm not saying you're disobeying, but in a way,
I'm not
we
saying.
might be disobeying. Perhaps if we saw it as disobedience, it might kind of sober us up, right? Because we don't see discipleship as a matter of obedience or like, so it's like, so why prioritize it? Like, there's certain things that we know there's sin, so of course I'm going to avoid that. I'm not going to do that. But like, we tend to kind of minimize certain things because, and perhaps the way that they've been taught has been their programs. They're not necessarily like have to haves, or so we may be just responding to the way that we've heard it taught, and so perhaps we need kind of like a readjustment of how we talk about discipleship. It's not just a program, it's not just a thing that you do, but it's like it's a way of life. Like my life, I should constantly be helping someone walk with the Lord, and I should see that as a priority because that is how the gospel bears fruit, um, and so, yeah, again, not saying that it's a just disobedience. I'm not,
Yeah.
and at the same time, it's like perhaps if we can ask the Lord to give us understanding of how important that is to the endurance of our faith, would be something that reorients and prior helps us prioritize discipleship in our lives.
I love it. I love it. So profound. Um, for those who are they're hearing that statement called to the ones and they don't there's no maybe that's news to them. Maybe they're like, I didn't know I was called to the ones. Maybe because we've only heard it as, you're either called to the masses, that's it, or hey,
Mhm.
I'm not called to be a pastor. I'm called to be an engineer, or I'm called to be a business, be an entrepreneur, or I'm in the arts, I'm an actor, or what
Mhm.
have you. Yeah, call to the ones. I love it because it's such a dynamic phrase. There's so
Mm.
many things you can pull from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for those who are tuning in and they don't even know that they're called to the ones, what would be your message to them, and how would you encourage them to live this life out, pick up this mandate, and live to serve the ones?
Yeah. I guess my first question would be, so, and again, like you said, this can be in all walks of life, right? Like honestly, like you don't even have to be a believer to believe in this message, like in the sense of like we could be, I mean, some artists may be listening right now who is making music, and you're really trying to like get known, and perhaps you're discouraged. um it's just like, yeah, I mean, it is discouraging when you work at something, and you want more people to hear it out of just because it will be awesome for more people to hear it. But I think my encouragement would be that, um like, ask God to help you understand like how significant, because you believe you're significant, right? So ask God to show you how significant a person is, right? How significant the work that you're doing, landing in a heart that is ready to hear or ready to receive or whatever it may be. Like, we don't know the implication for that. Like, we don't know what would come from that person, right? And so, not that you're just doing it hoping that one person, is, we're not do because it's really like, what is your motive, first of all? But just know that the question is, who are the ones in your life? Um, is it your family? Is it your neighbor? I mean, because it's basically like, who is your neighbor? Like, your ones are your neighbors. And so who are your neighbors? How are you seeking to see them? How are you seeking to serve and to love them? No matter what you may be doing, like, even if you are someone who gets up on stage every day with thousands of people,
Mm,
who are the ones in your life that you are called to? Because in our, especially as believers, again, it's not just about, I've reached this platform and I have the masses. It's like, how are you, even the one another's, right? Like, who are the ones that you could be doing the one another's to? And that is significant, because at the end of the day, I really don't believe that we are going to be measured by, oh wow, man, Ebenezer, you had 50 million people that you reached. Yodit, you had 2,000. Come into the pearly gates and you actually get you get this side of the house. You get this big mansion. Like that. That's not the measure of our worth. And so, I ask that question: who are the ones in your life? In and even if God calls you to the masses or gives you a platform, don't ever let it be at the neglect of the ones that are in your life in this very moment. And so seek them out too. I mean, the prayers that God will give us eyes to see and ears to hear, so that we wouldn't be like with the Good Samaritan. We wouldn't be the one who was going because he probably was going to serve, whatever, to service or something, and you neglected to be obedient to that one.
so good. I love it. Man, yeah. I think about the scriptures and how it commands us to just be faithful, and
Yeah.
faithfulness doesn't have a name, or it doesn't have a number attached to it.
Right.
And
Right. Yeah.
I love that. We could be here all day long, but I won't do that to you. What would be your last encouragement? Like, what would, with this project that you released and this, yeah, I think this beautiful message that the Lord has given you, what's the vision? Like, what do you want people to catch from this? Like, how has the Lord ministered to you, and what would you want to get out to others?
Yeah. I would encourage you, when the temptation, to believe that, the masses is more significant, than the ones, or that it gets God's attention, just know that's not true, right? That's not true. And the reality is like this whole message is because of Jesus, like the way that he expressed his love in a parable of like how he um what is I'm like I blanked on the scripture where it says he left the 99 to go after the one, right? And so just even the way that God expresses his love is like, if we think about the love of God, like he went after you.
Mm,
Like, yes, he is God, sovereign, this whole world is his. And yet the way that he pursued you
mm,
should show you how significant, you know. I pray that you would have that same heart to see the benefit, or not even the benefit, to see the significance of the ones in your life and pursuing them, loving them, serving them, seeing them, hearing them. Um, and why? Because he Jesus goes after the ones.
yeah, yeah.
And let me just say too, we touched on this a little bit, but you mentioned this of just um, we want to be seen, we want to be known, and the reality is like being called to the ones. It won't be the loudest call, right? You may not even be like acknowledged or seen, and even being called to the ones may not yield fruit right away.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's all about obedience. And so just I would pray that you would know that being called to the ones is an active obedience.
Mm, I love that. So good. My heart is full. I got so much out of this conversation. I'm leaving better because of it. For those who want to reach out to maybe ask more questions or get a better feel for what Call to the Ones are, maybe they want to purchase a crew neck or a shirt. Where can they find you to continue with that?
So there is a call to the ones at call to the ones on Instagram. And the shirts and sweatshirts are sold on www.culturedesigns.com. And yeah, I'm collaborating with a sister of mine who since she was in ninth grade, discipled, and have walked with her for a long time. And so wanting to use this platform to also bring awareness to just the cool work that she does.
Yeah.
And so, and then, yeah, so you can, my Instagram is at Yodit, Yodit. And so hit me up, any questions, but also love to hear stories of who the ones are for you and whom God, who are the ones that God has called you to be faithful to. And so,
Awesome. Awesome. Well, you did hint at a different project coming up.
yeah.
When that comes out, we're gonna have to bring you back on to talk about that. So yeah, for those who love this episode, love this content from her, she's got you can reach out to her on social media. She's for anyone who's followed her, who's following her, they'll be blessed. Yodi is again for the church, for the people of God. Her heart is about the kingdom, and so you will be blessed. But hopefully we'll have her back on shaping the culture as well when that other project releases. And so thank you so much for getting on here and taking the time to share your heart and just shed some wisdom for our listeners.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for making space, and thank you for listening. And yeah, just thank you for the work that you're doing on shaping the culture.
I appreciate that. Well, family, I hope you're blessed by this episode. Until next time, peace and grace.